Monday was an eventful day in Africa. From Burkina Faso to Cameroon and Madagascar, headline stories emerged from there. Welcome to Supply Watch. I'm Untitled Chapter, and this is Supply Chain Africa News. Here is what you can expect ahead. The military is now in charge in Burkina Faso. No constitution, no parliament, and closed borders. I have the latest details on the coup. Cameroon's stampede, 8 people dead, over 30 others injured. And the world dares Russia. Over 100,000 Russian troops seen at the Ukraine border. NATO, EU, and the US will act if Russia invades. And price of devices could soar with a shortage of semiconductor chips. And on good deeds this week, Uganda's mega Rolex makes the world Guinness record. Welcome to the program. We start in West Africa. The military in Burkina Faso took over the reins of the country in a mutiny after denying such plans last week. The move has been met with skepticism on one side and jubilation on the other. Protests in support and against the coup have emerged, with everyone making their case on the streets. The president, Christian Kabore, was arrested and detained at the Sangole Lamizana barracks along with the head of parliament and ministers, according to security sources. The military, in a press conference, announced the suspension of the constitution, the parliament, and the cabinet ministers.
La constitution est suspendue. 2. Le gouvernement est dissous. 3. L'Assemblée nationale est dissoute. 4. Les frontières terrestres et aériennes sont fermées pour compter du 24 janvier 2022 à 0 heure, et ce, jusqu'à nouvel ordre.
The military there also announced the closure of air and land borders until further notice. Regional body ECOWAS has criticized the coup and called on the military to return power to the civilian government. Before the coup in Burkina Faso, there had been successful coups in Chad, Mali, Guinea, and failed military takeovers in Niger and Sudan. The latest coup leaves Africa in a tight spot, with historians saying over 200 coups have taken place on the continent. From Burkina Faso, let's cross over to Cameroon now, where at least 8 people were killed and 38 others injured in a stampede at Olembe Stadium on Monday. The stampede happened as dozens struggled to get access to watch host Cameroon play Comoros in their round of 16 tie. CAF President Joseph Musepe visited the site on Tuesday and said he was sad and hurt by the incident. FIFA also sent their condolences to the bereaved.
There
were people behind who said push. I was among them, and when I saw that, I left to enter from the northwest. They stayed there, and that's when someone left to open the barrier. So someone pulled, they pushed like that. Some fell on top of others. There were even babies.
As the police closed the gate, a crowd of people came from behind, and I was stuck in it, so I couldn't go back. I was below, and God spared me.
Only 80% of the 60,000 stadium capacity were to be allowed to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but officials have said over 50,000 people were straining to access the stadium. Cameroon are hosting the African Cup of Nations that was taken away from them in 2019 due to security concerns as well as state of their stadiums. The tournament is expected to boost the economy of Cameroon that has suffered during the pandemic. The African Cup of Nations quarter-final, due to be held at the Olembe Stadium on Sunday, has been moved after a fatal crash that happened on Monday. Investigations on the matter are still ongoing. Now to Sudan, where a crisis is still ongoing. This week, protesters were out again demanding a return to civilian rule. The protests that started in October last year following a military coup have left over 72 people dead and over 2,000 others injured. Reports from Sudan allege that the security forces have employed live ammunition, thrown tear gas directly at protesters, and used brute force to disperse the masses. Transporting the injured to hospital is almost impossible, with ambulances stopped before reaching those injured. But even getting to the hospital does not guarantee safety. It is said security forces have raided hospitals and even thrown tear gas canisters in hospitals. Also, protesters have been arrested while receiving treatment.
I was in front of the protest. Tear gas was fired at protesters and I got hit by a canister. It hit me right behind my left ear.
There were shots fired on one of the streets when we were retreating from the security forces. I got grazed by a bullet in my head and was rushed to the hospital.
The ripple effects of the continuing protests is a weakening economy, high cost of living, and a sharp fall in productivity. Companies in Sudan are straining to move products, leading to high prices. Elsewhere, over 36 people lost their lives to tropical storm this week. Cyclone Ada swept through southern Africa, killing at least 34 people in Madagascar and 3 more in Mozambique, and knocking out power in most parts of Malawi. Authorities in Madagascar said 65,000 people have been made homeless. The storm destroyed homes, schools, and clinics in central and northern Mozambique. The United Nations says to 500,000 people could be affected in the country. The floods have destroyed critical infrastructure, hugely hampering supply of food and goods in this region. In Uganda, floods and mudslides in Kisoro district left at least 9 people dead, including a child. According to Red Cross Uganda, 8 of the bodies had been retrieved by Tuesday afternoon. Over 300 families have been left homeless and without livelihoods in the area. Now let's remain in East Africa, where trade talks between Kenya and Uganda have to wait once again as the Kenyan delegation seeks alternative dates from Kampala. According to Business Daily Africa, the Kenyan delegation received an invitation for a meeting set to start this Monday late, prompting a request for alternative dates. At the heart of the meeting is discussions on whether Uganda is actually producing surplus milk that is exported to Kenya. In 2019, Kenya imposed a ban on Uganda's milk after allegations emerged that Uganda is importing milk in powder form, then transforming it to normal milk before exporting it to Kenya. Kenyan delegation, led by Livestock Principal Secretary Harry Kimtai, comprises of trade experts, custom officials, and food scientists who will play an instrumental role during the proposed trade talks. The meeting between the two countries has been postponed thrice in the last year. Kenya and Uganda have also had friction at the border over COVID-19 testing. On the international front, tension continues to rise at the Russian-Ukraine border, with over 100,000 Russian troops said to be at the border with Ukraine. Russia says it will not invade Ukraine, but that has not stopped the world leaders from preparing for the worst. US President Joe Biden has warned of enormous consequences should Russia invade Ukraine. Among the sanctions that US is evaluating is sanctions against President Putin himself.
There will be enormous consequences if he were to go in and invade, as he could, the entire country, or a lot less than that as well, for Russia, not only in terms of economic consequences and political consequences, but it will be enormous consequences worldwide. This would be the largest, if he were to move in with all those forces, it would be the largest invasion since World War II. It would change the world.
The EU has also said, without giving much detail, it will impose sanctions on Russia if it invades Ukraine.
We reaffirm our full and unquestionable support to Ukraine, and that any military aggression against Ukraine will have serious consequences and massive costs for the perpetrator.
Head of EU Commission also announced financial support for Ukraine.
I am announcing a new financial assistance package to the country, made both of emergency loans and grants. First of all, the Commission proposes a new emergency macrofinancial assistance package of 1.2 billion euros. This package will help Ukraine now to address its financing needs due to the conflict.
At the same time, the head of NATO announced reinforcement of forces in Eastern Europe with ships, fighter jets and troops expected.
We are considering to further enhance our presence in the eastern part of the alliance. This could include the deployment of additional NATO battle groups.
Russia continues to insist it's not planning on invading Ukraine. Ukraine is among the global oil-producing nations, and the looming conflict is sending oil prices on a spiral. As of 2016, Ukraine, which is ranked 61st among all producing nations, is said to produce every year an amount equivalent to 5.2% of its proven reserves. That's a very small amount. Whether an invasion of Ukraine would give China courage to do the same in Taiwan is a matter of time and conjecture. But what looks likely is an invasion would force other nations to join in, with the impact spilling over worldwide.
If Russia decides to come into Ukraine, it will be a disaster for Russia.
At the same time, the U.S. Department of Commerce has warned of the looming global shortage of semiconductor chips. A survey of more than 150 firms around the world found that the supplies had fallen from an average of 40 days worth in 2019 to just 5 days in late 2021. Sales of devices soared during the pandemic, leaving semiconductor makers struggling to keep up with demand. The shortage has resulted in huge disruptions for major industries. Millions of products, cars, washing machines, smartphones, and more rely on these chips, also known as semiconductors. Majority of these semiconductor chips are manufactured in Taiwan, but Intel and Samsung have indicated plans to construct chip manufacturing firms in the US. All this is happening at a time when the demand for electric cars is on the rise, making semiconductor chips that more important. And on good deeds this week, we celebrate Ugandans who broke into the Guinness World Record book, making the biggest Rolex in the world. The Rolex weighed 204.6 kilograms. Rolex is a popular street food in Uganda, mainly in urban areas, and is made from fried eggs and vegetables rolled inside a chapati. It is appetizing. If you travel to Uganda, give it a try. It took over 15 people playing different roles to make the giant Rolex and make a nation proud. The Rolex usually cost about 20 cents, that is in dollars, or about 100,000 Uganda shillings. That really looks fun. I wonder how it tasted. That is all we have for you this week. Remember to visit our website and interact with us on our YouTube channel. If you have a story on supply chain, no matter where you are in Africa, write to us on supplychainafricanews@gmail.com. Former US and military commander during the Second World War, Dwight Eisenhower, once said, "You will not find it difficult to prove that battles, campaigns, and even wars have been won or lost primarily because of logistics." It goes without saying, the men and women in supply chain are vital. I'm Mono. See you next week.